James, thank you very much for joining us here at TradeDelicious. Why don't we start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and the business you work for?
Morning, Jordan. I'm the managing director of AMT Futures, which is a FCA regulated cash equity futures and options broker. And we also trade under the name optionsdesk.com. My principal role within the company is to bring my experience gained from servicing some of the world's largest institutional and corporate clients when I was at Man Group, UBS, and JP Morgan, and to try and bring that experience and level of service to retail, high net worth, and small institutional clients that don't have access to that same level of service.
That's fantastic. How did you get into this line of work?
I got into this line of work through a headhunter that I used to use at UBS to stock our own trading desk. And she called me and asked if I would be interested in taking on a project which was really bringing institutional levels of service to retail customers. I think the feeling is that nowadays so much of the retail space is catered to by platforms and contracts for difference, spread bets. And you've got a bifurcated world now where um, regulated instruments, such as exchange traded equities and futures and options, are being supplanted at retail level by less regulated instruments, for instance, cryptocurrencies, crypto exchanges, spread bets, etc. Um, Technology has played such a huge part in democratizing finance, and that is a fantastic thing. But at the same time, is there a market still for traditional voice brokerage? And that's really the challenge that we've set ourselves.
Love a good challenge. Why? Let's go down. Why have you set this challenge? What sets you out from everyone else?
I think what sets us out from everyone else is that the world of futures and options is a complicated one. The FCA, our regulator in the UK, is really since 2008 concerned about leveraged financial instruments in the retail space, and with good reason. So what's happened now is that the financial ombudsman tends to always side with the retail investor if they've traded a leveraged instrument, because these aren't typically necessarily appropriate for that retail customer unless they really understand what it is that they're doing. As a result of that, futures and options have pretty much fallen out of favor, certainly in the UK. If you look at the explosion of equity derivatives in the US, China, India, even Brazil, you'll see that they're incredibly popular instruments with retail clients. But kind of in the UK and Europe, they've almost been regulated out of that space. And as such, people have gone to different environments in order to be able to trade. So what we want to do is, in line with this incoming consumer duty, middle of this year, is make sure our clients have a good outcome when they trade these leveraged financial instruments. And the way that we think we can ensure that is to speak with them over the phone. So therefore, we don't offer any trading platforms to clients. And everything that you trade with us, you have to do by speaking to one of our voice brokers on our desk. These guys all have, in some instances, most instances, decades of experience with these products, and they can help the clients navigate through these incredibly powerful tools, which, when used correctly, really do have some amazing outcomes.
Outstanding. It's taken the traditional aspect, but improving it and bringing that human or humility back into trading, which I think so many people desire. Sticking on that subject, you've made the decision to sponsor an event up and coming Traders Day Live. Can you talk to me about that decision? Why was that decision made?
So Ken Davis, the organizer, is quite a persuasive man, and he talked to us a little bit about what he was trying to achieve with Traders Day Live. Really, the focus is rather than get rich quick, it's educational, is to try and understand the world of financial services and get the best out of your portfolio. And that aligns very closely with us and what we're trying to do. So we see futures and options really in the context of three things, but almost always as an overlay to an existing store of wealth or an existing trading or investment strategy. So our clients typically fall into three buckets, and I think this resonated with Traders Day Live. It's people that want to trade tactically, and that means using options to get into or out of your portfolio, certain positions that you want to put on instead of a good till cancelled order. Why not sell a put and get paid to wait for the market to come to you? And if it doesn't, just keep the premium. Also, people that want to trade tactically around specific events. Is Boris Johnson going to sign a Brexit deal? Is Vladimir Putin going to invade Ukraine? These kind of things lend themselves to options strategies that help you manage your risk as much as to profit. And managing risk nowadays is something that is becoming more and more imperative in the kind of current geopolitical environment. So people that want to trade tactically, people that want to generate extra income from their existing portfolio. So for instance, granting covered calls is a good way of having a mechanism for earning extra income and taking profits, for instance, when the market rises to a level that you're happy to take those profits. And the final one is people that want to protect their existing store of wealth. So what very often happens in a volatile market or something that people are concerned could drop significantly is that they move into cash. The trouble with cash and doing that is that you crystallize any capital gains that you would have made outside any tax wrapper. You forego any dividend income that you would have generated by just holding on to your positions. And worst of all, almost inevitably, you will miss the bounce when it comes. So actually buying some put options just as a means to ensure your portfolio allows you to sleep very happily at night. And rather like your car, if you pay £300 insurance premium and you don't drive into a tree, that's okay. If you do drive into a tree, or heaven forbid somebody else, you're going to get millions of dollars of coverage. So that's really the way that we think of it.
Keeping that in mind, the mission and the values of the people attending this event, what do you think AMT Futures is going to bring to allow people to take more information from you guys, more experience?
Well, we've basically thought very hard about how to answer that question, and we've thought about what is the most topical thing in retail investors' minds, and I guess cryptocurrencies have been front and center of everybody's mind really for the last 3 years in a retail environment. What's interesting to us is that they've really used gold's narrative to promote those cryptocurrencies. In other words, as a hedge against inflation, as a way of countering the unlimited quantitative easing, this seemingly unlimited printing of money, raising of debt ceilings. What can you hold that is of limited supply, that is of universal appeal? And of course, for 5,000 years, the answer has been gold. For the last 5 years, it's been crypto. But as we've seen with crypto, there's an awful lot of things that can go wrong with it. And when we talk about gold or any of these other exchange traded futures and options, we think a lot about the environment in which they're traded. So for instance, with us, we only trade regulated instruments on regulated exchanges through regulated counterparties. All of our client money is segregated into a completely third-party cash and custody environment. And all of our fees are completely transparent. So we believe that, trading is hard enough anyway. But if you're then going to introduce all of that additional counterparty risk and complexity, that's very dangerous. And things like commission-free trading, well, guess what? There's no such thing as free. If you're not paying commission, then it's in the bid-offer spread. And in a regulated environment, all the fees are transparent. You know exactly what you're paying on these exchange-traded products, importantly. So when we were thinking about how to add value to Traders Day Live and the community that will be attending, we were saying, right, let's just talk about gold, because it's an interesting product, very topical. In the UK, it reached its all-time high about 3 weeks ago in sterling terms. And let's think about who we can bring to talk about it objectively. I don't want this to be a sort of sales promotion for Options Desk. Who can we get to talk fluently about the opportunities? And who better than the CME Group, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which runs the global gold benchmark on COMEX, the gold contract, and to have their senior economist come and join us, Eric Norland, to talk us through the role of gold in a balanced portfolio, the role of gold in the global economy, the macroeconomics surrounding gold, which central banks are busy buying gold at the moment. Why are they buying it? Why should we be buying it? So I hope that this will not be in any way a sales promo for our company or the CME Group. I hope it will provide very, very practical information about the role of gold in any traders or investors' portfolio.
That's outstanding. It's the best way to put your left foot forward as well. Is we're all there to learn and to engage and to build a community and network with people, and doing and bringing someone like that from the CME Group is going to be an outstanding way for traders to get an understanding on these assets, not only from a professional standpoint, but also from a trader's standpoint and analytical standpoint. It's exciting. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be very, very good to see you both up there as well, and have a discussion about this. How does your sponsorship, if I was just a guest attending this event, what would I be looking for really from your sponsorship? What do I want to get out of it?
I think there's really a couple of things that you'd want to be getting out of it. The first is to understand all the different trading venues that you can trade on and what differentiates them. So, for instance, on exchange versus off exchange, over the counter, spread betting. Derivatives is a very broad church. It's simply anything derived from an underlier. And when you understand the difference between exchange traded and over the counter instruments, between an exchange price and a market made price, you begin to understand the importance in the institutional world. We call it slippage. In other words, on regulated exchanges, you have a duty of best execution. In OTC markets, this is my price, you can take it or leave it. And I think what a lot of retail traders miss is the cost of trade. And to understand that cost of trade, simply because you may have been lulled by the thought that it's commission free, without understanding what that bid offer spread is, without understanding what the obligation of best execution entails. So I think that's one thing very practically people will take away, is the trading venue upon which they trade. I think the second thing is that options, as I said, are complex, but they are a fantastic way of making money or hedging your portfolio or generating income. And I think if people start to understand options as an overlay, so one product we have, for instance, is Equity Plus, where you can use the underlying equities that you hold to generate that extra income, as I mentioned, through covered calls, for instance. When you start understanding the multi-dimensional aspect of options as an overlay, because, for example, if you were to buy NVIDIA just before it announced stellar Q2 forecast of 11 billion in revenues in the middle of May, you would have enjoyed a 25% rise in the NVIDIA share price on the day of that announcement. But if you'd held call options on that day ahead, because the results you thought there was going to be volatility, you could, for example, have bought a strangle on that trade, where as long as it goes either up a lot or down a lot, you're going to make a fantastic return. And that will be in the hundreds of percents over the period of a day or two. So options have the ability to trade volatility, to trade time, to trade obviously the underlying market price as well. But it allows you to trade in 3 dimensions. Instead of it just being a binary, it's either going to go up or down, depending on the price movement alone. This gives you, well, simply put, much more optionality.
Fantastic. From a personal standpoint, looking ahead, What are your expectations of Traders Day Live? You've mentioned earlier that this is a bit of a different take. We're going for the education. It's all for the trader, whereas a lot of the events that are already out there are about the businesses advertising. This is about the trader. What are your expectations from the event?
So we launched Options Desk in the middle of last year. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, this consumer duty coming in at the middle of the year, is to very clearly define your target market audience. And digitally, that's quite hard to do. You basically have a massively broad reach, um, and it's a kind of numbers game. What attending something like Traders Day Live, where you've got genuinely inquisitive people looking to understand that trading environment better, is a much clearer representation of what we believe is our target market. And that will allow us to do that assessment, make sure that the products and services that we're offering are relevant to people, are described in a way that's easy for them to understand, and allows us to present our resource section of Options Desk that hopefully explains everything there is to know about options, how to use them, the different contexts in which they can be used. We've built a thing called a strategy explorer, which you can use completely free. You don't have to give away any personal details. You just fill in a questionnaire. You can obviously answer those questions any way you want. Talks about your years of experience, the amount of money that you have, the attitude that you have to risk, whether you're bullish, bearish, sideways, whether your appetite to risk is limited or unlimited. And based on the way that you fill that in, it'll say, here are the relevant option strategies for the list of answers that you've just given to us. And of course, you can answer multiple different ways and get multiple different outcomes. But to try to help people understand which strategy would be most appropriate for their experience, for the amount of money they're prepared to risk, for their obviously outlook on the market itself. So again, to answer your question, what do we hope that we can contribute to the people attending, and the people who are attending contribute to us? It's very much a two-way street. Our target market assessment, learn what our clients want, and strive to give it to them.
Fantastic. If you were chatting to a trader who's sitting on the fence, so close to buying a ticket, they just haven't had that push, what would you say to that trader?
I would say you're right to hesitate. You're right to think hard about what you're doing. And if the reason that you're pausing before you trade is because you're weighing up the risk versus reward, you are doing absolutely the right thing. One of the things that we talk about is proactive friction. We don't want to gamify this experience. We don't want to say trade quick or miss this opportunity. We want people to think really long and hard before they trade, why they're trading, what they're looking for on the upside, what they're prepared to risk on the downside, and then tailor that trade accordingly. So I think a pause for thought before you trade is an excellent strategy.
Fantastic. James, it's been an absolute pleasure. Do you have any other comments or little things you wanted to add talking about Traders Day Live?
The only thing I would add is that I hope the session is well attended. I hope we get lots of questions. I'm there to really talk with Eric, but hopefully the audience will be interactive. We'll have a fully manned stand, and we really hope that people will drop by either before or after the 12:10 session to come and talk to us and find out a little bit more about this exciting world of futures and options and how we can make it relevant to their own personal, as I said, investment or trading strategy.
Fantastic. Everybody, this is James Proudlock of AMT Futures. James, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you in London, June 17th.
Fantastic. Really look forward to it. Thanks so much for your time.